Hello everybody, this is Reviews and More, back with a quick audio video item review. This is from NEEWER. This is their little camera light that you put on top of your camera. It's battery powered, and here's a quick unboxing and review, as well as show off all the various things you can do with it and the different lighting settings. So this one is the RGB set. It's going to do the full color spectrum, as well as obviously your standard lighting modes like a soft white all the way up to like a rich amber yellow all the way up to a very, very bright day glow 8500K kind of lighting situation. So this is a sustained light. It is not a flash, so it is also not powered by the camera, but it is rechargeable with a Type-C, so no external batteries are needed. You just plug it up to the wall and it'll charge up. I can't tell you the battery life, but based on just testing it, it didn't even go down a tiny bit on the brightest settings, and I was fudging around with this thing for at least 30-45 minutes. So it lasts for a very, very long time, which makes sense because it's just LED lights in there, and that's all it really takes. So it's very, very low wattage, low power usage, even on the max settings. So here you see me kind of running through it, just opening it up a little bit. Once you turn the power on with the power button then becomes your toggle button. So basically you press the power button to alter what you're changing. The right and left buttons let you actually change around the setting depending on what you're on. So and then mode switches over from standard mode to RGB mode to over to that little like weird, it's going to basically simulate ambient light from various sources, whether it be a cop car or a fire truck or a TV. It's just meant to be ambient light if you have a filming need for that. Alright, so first we're jumping into the brightness just so you can kind of see what's going on. I have all the lights turned off, so the only thing you're seeing here is this light as it's working, as well as just the camera's automatic light filtering option, which I have basically turned off, but it will adjust in autofocus, so you still will see a little bit of I'm going to call it artifacts from that, but for the most part this is what you see when you use it in person, and there's not a whole lot of transition by filming it that kind of messes it up. So we're going to change it over directly to the actual just brightness setting that's to me the brightest, that what I call the day glow or the daylight setting. Some people call it like a fluorescent lighting, depending on what you're looking at. Sometimes they call it like a blue kind of backlighting there. And this is me just cycling through, going up and down, and basically taking it down to the lowest percentage all the way to the highest. The lowest percentage is still pretty bright, and when it turns off and goes from 1% to 0, it's pretty abrupt. So it doesn't really go down to a really dim mode. It really is fairly bright throughout. It just goes from basically pretty bright to super bright once you turn it up to 100%. So there isn't like a super duper low light setting on this. So if you're looking for something that gives you a very, very dim light for whatever reason you might have for that, this probably isn't going to work for you. But if you're just looking for something to light up whatever you're profiling, whatever you're filming for an extended period of time, it's a good way to do that. It also does a halfway decent job at distance. I would say this is not as bright as a full-blown flash on a camera. So if you're looking to light up something that's 15, 20 feet away, it will light it up more than it would otherwise be in a dark room, but it's not going to basically light it up the way a camera flash would. It's really meant for kind of close to mid-range kind of focal points and things you're filming. So here we're going to run through the various standard lighting options, which takes us to that, again, that bright bluish white light that's used to make things super duper white, all the way down to that very dark rich amber color that we kind of see from certain light bulbs, or you might want for some kind of profiling or sepia tone kind of filming you're looking to do. And here we see the range. Again, there's no outside lighting going on here, so this is just the light from the light source that's being profiled in this review. Nothing else is interfering outside of just general daylight from the window that's just barely to the right of this filming. And then we can go to the RGB settings. RGB is obviously, it goes from red to blue to green, and it goes everywhere in between. It's fairly good at transitioning. Each color feels pretty good. If you're looking to figure out what color this really is, look at how it's reflecting off that paper backing, that white paper backing I'm using. That's what's going to be closer. So it kind of goes from a red to a yellow to a green, all of which are fairly rich. They do fill the room up with color. The colors, in my opinion, transfer really well because they're easy and more stark to see. But there you see it up against that white poster board backing I'm using as a background. And it does a pretty good job. There is some hot spotting. You'll notice that it's much, much brighter one spot on the actual light, so keep that in mind as you're working through it. But the integrated diffuser in the light bulb does a pretty good job. Not amazing, but again, this thing was priced at under 15 bucks. And then this last part, I'm not sure what you would use this for outside of maybe just some short form film kind of formatting stuff just to make some background that's unique to you. You have all these various color settings. It just blinks through different options. So there's like a police, a fire, a TV. If you want to run through these and pick out each one, feel free. This is probably the least useful for me, in my opinion, but there are some interesting ones like lightning and that kind of stuff that gives like random flashes, which is kind of interesting. It's just a little add-on that I think would be useful for certain contexts, especially if you're doing stuff like on Shorts or TikTok, that kind of stuff. I think you might be able to find some good uses there for it. But if you're just looking to have the light be functional, like it's going to do something, this is not really just good for general lighting purposes for videography. But with that, that's the end of the review, guys. For under 15 bucks, this is a great little gadget item, and it's really, really nice. The fact that it's rechargeable is probably the biggest plus. The biggest downside for me is probably the fact that the light does not extend very far, but again, it's not super bright. It's meant for like close-up filming or moderate distance filming. And the other issue is that it only dims down to a certain point. So even when it's at 1% of its brightness, it's still pretty bright, and then once it goes to 0, it obviously turns off. So there's not really a very dim setting on it. So that's probably the biggest flaw. Other than that, great item, under 15 bucks on Amazon from NEEWER. It is a very, very cool item, and I think you should pick it up if you're looking for a great budget lighting option for videoing, doing basic stuff around the house, or reviews like I do.